What if I told you that the harder you push, the farther away your goals may actually move? That sounds wrong. It goes against everything we were taught. Work harder, try longer, push through, never stop. Yet look around. So many people are exhausted. They are busy every day. They are doing everything right. And still, nothing changes. This is not because they are lazy. It is not because they lack discipline. It is not because they don't want it badly enough. It's because effort alone does not control outcomes. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Effort without direction does not create progress. It creates friction. You've seen this before, maybe in your own life. You wake up early, you grind, you sacrifice, you say no to rest, you say yes to pressure, and yet the results feel distant. Almost like life is moving in the opposite direction. This creates confusion, doubt, even frustration with yourself. You start asking the wrong questions. What am I doing wrong? Why is this working for others, but not for me? But there is a deeper question that rarely gets asked. What if pushing harder is not the answer? What if it's actually the problem? Science quietly supports this idea. When the mind is under constant pressure, perception narrows, creativity drops, decision-making weakens. You become reactive instead of responsive. In other words, the harder you force life, the less clearly you see it. This is where things get interesting. Because many breakthroughs do not happen during struggle. They happen during clarity, during calm, during moments when effort aligns, instead of fights. Most people never learn this. They confuse motion with progress. They confuse struggle with growth. And they confuse exhaustion with dedication. But the universe does not respond to effort the way we think it does. It responds to direction, to signals, to internal alignment. Two people can work equally hard. One moves forward, the other stays stuck. The difference is not energy, it's orientation. In this video, you're going to learn why effort alone can push results away. You'll understand why feeling stuck is often a sign of misalignment, not failure. And you'll see how a subtle shift in direction can create momentum that force never could. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right, but getting nowhere, this message is for you. Stay with me until the end. Because once you see this pattern, you won't be able to unsee it. Before we talk about the deeper mechanics of how life actually responds, we need to look at how most people believe it works. From an early age we are taught a simple formula: do the work first, suffer a little, push through the discomfort. Then, someday, the reward will arrive. This idea feels logical, almost comforting, because it gives effort a clear promise. If you act enough, you will be rewarded. Before we talk about questioning that promise, notice how deeply it is wired into daily life. School teaches it. Jobs reinforce it. Society celebrates stories where people struggle endlessly before finally making it. The message is subtle, but constant. Struggle is the price. Success is the prize. And the longer you struggle, the more deserving you become. Very few people stop to ask whether this pattern actually reflects how life works. Before we talk about results, consider what this belief does inside the mind. When you expect reward only after suffering, you begin to tolerate stress as normal. Pressure becomes proof that you are on the right path. Exhaustion feels honorable. Rest starts to feel dangerous. If you are not tired, you assume you are not doing enough. This turns effort into a constant state, not a focused tool. Before we talk about success, look at how resistance quietly forms. When action is driven by fear of falling behind, every task carries weight. You are no longer acting from clarity, but from urgency. Your body tightens. Your thoughts race. Even small decisions feel heavy. The mind begins to associate progress with pain, and that association creates internal friction. Before we talk about achievement, notice how this model shapes expectations. People begin to believe that if something feels hard, it must be working. And if something feels easy, it must be wrong. This reverses intuition. Opportunities that flow naturally are ignored. Paths that demand suffering are pursued instead. The struggle itself becomes the goal, not the outcome. Before we talk about why things stall, observe what happens over time. Constant pressure narrows perception. Creativity fades. Curiosity disappears. You stop seeing alternatives, because survival mode takes over. You keep repeating the same actions, hoping more intensity will finally produce a different result. But intensity without awareness rarely changes direction. Before we talk about resistance in the external world, understand that it often starts internally. When effort is fueled by obligation instead of alignment, the mind pushes while the body pulls back. This creates hesitation, delay, and burnout. Life feels like it's pushing against you, but in reality, you are pushing against yourself. Before we talk about changing outcomes, recognize this quiet truth. The belief that life only rewards struggle trains people to fight for everything. And when everything feels like a fight, even success feels heavy when it finally arrives. Before we talk about the universe working backwards, we need to clear the confusion around that phrase. It is not mystical language meant to sound impressive. It is not about magic or blind belief. It is a practical description of how change actually unfolds in human experience. Most people hear the phrase and imagine something abstract, but what it points to is surprisingly simple. Before we talk about events changing, we need to talk about states. Every action you take comes from a state of mind. Calm or anxious, confident or doubtful, open or defensive. These states are not random. They shape how you interpret situations, how you respond to opportunities, and what choices feel available to you in the moment. Before we talk about results, understand that the external world responds to patterns, not wishes. Your internal state sets those patterns. When you move through life tense and uncertain, you send a very different signal than when you move through life grounded and clear. This signal influences how people respond to you, how risks appear, and how possibilities unfold. Before we talk about manifestation, remove the fantasy around the word. This is not about sitting still and hoping something appears. It is about recognizing that behavior follows belief, and belief follows feeling. A person who feels secure acts differently than someone who feels desperate. The actions may look similar on the surface, but the timing, tone, and outcome are often very different. Before we talk about change, notice how feeling always comes first. You do not wait for confidence to act confident. Confidence grows because you begin to feel capable before proof arrives. You do not wait for peace to slow down. Peace emerges when you create internal space first. The inner shift happens quietly, long before the outer shift becomes visible. Before we talk about form, think about moments in your own life when things suddenly clicked. The opportunity appeared after you stopped forcing. The answer came after you stopped obsessing. Nothing changed on the outside at first, but something settled inside you. That internal adjustment changed how you showed up, and the world responded accordingly. Before we talk about the physical world, understand that it moves slower than the mind. Thoughts and feelings shift instantly. Systems, people, and circumstances take time. When people don't see immediate results, they assume nothing is happening, but the process has already begun beneath the surface. Before we talk about patience, realize this is where most people give up. They change internally, then panic when reality does not instantly reflect it. They return to force. They return to control, and in doing so, they cancel the very state that allowed movement to begin. Before we talk about why this matters, remember this simple principle. Feeling creates form, not the other way around. When you understand that, life stops feeling random. It starts feeling responsive. Before we talk about getting what you want, we need to talk about why wanting is rarely the deciding factor. Desire is easy. Everyone wants more freedom, more money, more peace, more recognition. Wanting costs nothing. It does not require change. That is why so many people want the same things yet live completely different lives. Before we talk about effort, understand that the universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you consistently live as true. This is where identity enters quietly. Identity is the story you believe about who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible for you. It operates in the background, shaping your choices long before you notice them. Before we talk about outcomes, look at how identity works in real life. Two people can want the same result. One moves toward it naturally, the other hesitates, delays, or self-sabotages. Not because of intelligence or luck, but because their self-image sets invisible limits. One believes, this is normal for someone like me. The other believes, this would be an exception. Before we talk about action, notice how identity controls behavior. A person who sees themselves as capable speaks up. A person who sees themselves as unworthy stays silent. A person who believes success is safe takes risks. A person who believes success brings danger avoids opportunity. These choices feel logical to the individual, even when they block progress. Before we talk about habits, recognize that habits are expressions of identity. You do not repeatedly act against who you believe you are. You may try for a while, but the old pattern returns. This is why motivation fades. Motivation fights identity. Identity always wins in the long run. Before we talk about frustration, understand why people feel stuck despite effort. They are trying to achieve a future while still identifying with a past version of themselves. They want growth, but they see themselves as someone who struggles. They want abundance, but they see themselves as someone who barely gets by. The mind works to stay consistent, not successful. Before we talk about change, realize that identity is not fixed, it is learned. It is reinforced by experience, language, and repetition. Every time you say this is just how I am, you strengthen it. Every time you expect disappointment, you prepare for it. And life often confirms what you are ready to recognize. Before we talk about results, notice the quiet truth. People rarely rise to the level of their desires. They fall to the level of their self-concept. Outcomes match identity because identity decides what feels allowed, safe, and realistic. Before we talk about transformation, remember this: when identity shifts, behavior follows without force. And when behavior changes consistently, results have no choice but to change with it. Before we talk about why things suddenly show up, we need to talk about chasing. Chasing feels active. It feels productive. It gives the illusion of control. When people chase, they believe they are proving desire. But what they are often communicating beneath the surface is urgency, fear, and lack. Before we talk about results, notice the emotional state behind chasing. Chasing is driven by the belief that something is missing right now. That belief creates tension. The mind narrows, attention locks onto the outcome. Every delay feels personal. Every obstacle feels like rejection. This state shapes behavior in subtle but powerful ways. Before we talk about why things slow down, understand how lack operates as a signal. When you act from lack, you over-explain, you over-push, you over-correct. Decisions become reactive instead of intentional. Even opportunities that appear are approached with pressure, which often weakens timing and clarity. Before we talk about calm, recognize how different it feels. Calm is not indifference. Calm is trust. It is the internal knowing that something does not need to be forced. From calm, choices are cleaner. Words are fewer. Actions land with precision. Others feel this difference, even if they cannot explain it. Before we talk about alignment, consider how life responds to states, not statements. You can say all the right words. You can repeat affirmations. You can claim belief, but if your internal state is anxious and grasping, that is the message being sent. The universe responds to consistency, not intention alone. Before we talk about timing, notice how many people experience breakthroughs after they stop chasing.
The job offer arrives after they stop refreshing their inbox. The relationship improves after they release control. The idea clicks after they stop forcing an answer. Nothing magical happened. The signal changed. Before we talk about trust, understand that calm creates space. Space allows perspective. Perspective reveals options that pressure hides. When you stop chasing, you stop blocking. You stop interfering with natural movement. This is why things appear when you are no longer desperate for them. Before we talk about action, clarify this point. Letting go does not mean doing nothing. It means acting without emotional weight. It means moving without needing immediate validation. The same actions taken from trust produce different outcomes than actions taken from fear. Before we talk about results, remember this simple principle: lack pushes, trust allows. The universe responds to the state you move from, not the words you repeat. Before we talk about action, we need to talk about prediction. The human mind is not neutral. It is constantly forecasting what will happen next. Long before you move, speak, or decide, your brain runs simulations based on past experience, beliefs, and emotional memory. These predictions feel like intuition, but they are often assumptions wearing a familiar face. Before we talk about behavior, notice how expectation quietly sets direction. When someone expects rejection, they speak more cautiously. When someone expects success, they speak with ease. The words may be similar, but the energy is not. Tone, timing, and posture shift automatically to match what the mind believes is coming. Before we talk about effort, understand that people rarely act randomly. They act in alignment with what they expect to be true. If you expect failure, you prepare for damage control. If you expect difficulty, you brace yourself. If you expect ease, you move smoothly. The expectation shapes the strategy before logic ever steps in. Before we talk about outcomes, consider how this plays out daily. A person who assumes things never work out for them hesitates just enough to miss opportunities. A person who assumes things usually work out takes small risks without overthinking. From the outside, it looks like luck. From the inside, it is consistency between belief and behavior. Before we talk about confidence, realize that it is often misunderstood. Confidence is not loudness or certainty, it is expectation. It is the quiet assumption that your actions will lead somewhere useful. This assumption removes friction. You do not second guess every step. You do not scan constantly for signs of failure. You move forward with less resistance. Before we talk about self-sabotage, notice how the mind protects its predictions. When reality begins to contradict a long-held assumption, discomfort appears. The mind prefers familiarity over improvement. So people unconsciously act in ways that restore the old pattern. They miss deadlines, they delay responses, they choose what feels known over what feels possible. Before we talk about the world responding, understand that life often mirrors expectations because expectations guide perception. You notice evidence that confirms what you already believe. You ignore what contradicts it. Over time, this selective attention builds a reality that feels objective, but is deeply filtered. Before we talk about change, recognize how powerful assumptions really are. They do not just predict outcomes, they rehearse them. The body prepares, the nervous system adjusts, decisions line up. What you expect becomes what you are ready to experience. Before we talk about good or bad results, remember this: life does not confirm your hopes as reliably as it confirms your assumptions. And until those assumptions change, action alone rarely produces a different result. Before we talk about alignment, we need to be clear about one thing: action still matters. Nothing changes without movement. Ideas stay ideas, intentions stay intentions. But the way action is taken makes all the difference. Not all action carries the same weight, and not all action moves things forward. Before we talk about effort, notice how aligned action feels. It is not rushed, it is not frantic, it feels clear. There is a sense of right timing, even if the outcome is uncertain. You know what to do next, and you do it without dragging yourself forward. Energy is used, but it is not drained. Before we talk about forced action, recognize the contrast. Forced action feels heavy before it even begins. You procrastinate, you overthink. You need constant motivation just to start. The mind argues. The body resists. Every step feels like pushing against an invisible wall. Before we talk about productivity, understand that clarity creates efficiency. When action comes from alignment, you waste less energy second-guessing. Decisions take less time. You move directly instead of looping. Even mistakes feel cleaner, because they provide information instead of shame. Before we talk about burnout, observe how it forms. Burnout is not caused by effort alone. It is caused by sustained effort in the wrong direction. When actions conflict with internal values or beliefs, friction builds. The nervous system stays on high alert. Rest no longer restores. Fatigue becomes constant. Before we talk about discipline, redefine it. Discipline is not forcing yourself to suffer. It is choosing actions that support your direction. When direction is clear, discipline feels like structure, not punishment. You still show up, but you do not have to fight yourself every time. Before we talk about momentum, notice how alignment creates it naturally. Small wins appear. Feedback makes sense. Progress feels cumulative instead of exhausting. You are not waiting for motivation, you are responding to clarity. This is why aligned action often produces results faster, even when the effort seems smaller. Before we talk about resistance, understand that it is information. Resistance is not failure. It is a signal that something is misaligned. Ignoring it leads to burnout. Listening to it allows adjustment. Most people push harder when resistance appears. Few pause to question direction. Before we talk about consistency, remember this. Action taken from alignment compounds. Action taken from force depletes. One builds energy over time, the other consumes it, and life responds differently to each. Before we talk about progress, we need to confront one of the most deeply rooted beliefs people carry. The belief that pain equals progress, that if something hurts, it must be working. This idea is praised, repeated, and rewarded, yet it quietly distorts how people measure growth. Before we talk about effort, notice how suffering has been romanticized. Stories of success often highlight exhaustion, sacrifice, and endless struggle. Rarely do they emphasize clarity, timing, or simplicity. This trains the mind to associate pain with value and ease with weakness. Before we talk about results, understand the cost of this belief. When pain becomes proof of progress, people ignore warning signs. Stress is normalized, burnout is dismissed, joy is postponed. The body signals imbalance, but the mind overrides it in the name of discipline. Before we talk about ease, we must redefine it. Ease does not mean doing nothing. Ease does not mean avoiding responsibility. Ease means moving with clarity instead of conflict. It means actions fit the moment instead of fighting it. Effort is still present, but it is not heavy. Before we talk about laziness, recognize how often ease is misunderstood. Laziness avoids action. Ease refines action. Laziness delays decisions. Ease simplifies them. One drains momentum, the other preserves it. They are not the same, but they are often confused. Before we talk about efficiency, notice how the mind works when pressure is removed. Focus sharpens. Solutions appear faster. You see patterns instead of problems. This is not coincidence. The nervous system functions better when it is not under constant threat. Clarity replaces urgency. Before we talk about productivity, consider how much energy is wasted proving dedication, long hours. unnecessary complexity, repeated tasks that feel important but produce little change. Ease questions these patterns. It asks what actually matters and removes what does not. Before we talk about mastery, observe how skilled people operate. They do not rush. They do not force. Their movements are precise. Their decisions are clean. What looks effortless is often the result of understanding, not avoidance. Ease is the outcome of alignment and experience. Before we talk about growth, understand this shift. Progress does not require pain, it requires awareness. When clarity increases, effort decreases. Results improve not because you are trying less, but because you are trying smarter. Before we talk about moving forward, remember this truth. Ease is not the enemy of progress. Confusion is, and clarity always feels lighter than struggle. So here's the core idea. The universe responds from the inside out. It's not about pushing harder or struggling longer. Results don't come from effort first. They don't come from struggle first. They come from alignment first. When your mind, your feelings, and your actions are in sync, the world naturally mirrors that energy. When you focus on shifting yourself internally, clarity replaces chaos, calm replaces pressure, and opportunities begin to show up almost effortlessly. The outer world always follows the inner state. Once you understand this, everything changes: how you work, how you live, and how results appear in your life. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss insights that can transform the way you manifest and live.